Like the future Hampton, the Wellington was developed in accordance with the B-932 specification for a twin-engine bomber. The development was led by R. Pearson with the active participation of B. Wallace, who applied a geodesic kit scheme to the project. The airplane was a monoplane with a mid-wing, single-beam wing and retractable landing gear. As a result of a competition in May 1933, the Vickers project, together with Handley Page, was selected for further implementation. At first, the plan was to use liquid-cooled Rolls-Royce Gosco engines, but in June 1934, the choice was made in favor of Pegasus Star-type engines. The Wellington prototype with Pegasus 10 engines, 915 horsepower, made its first flight on June 15, 1936. The aircraft as a whole met the requirements of the Army, and, moreover, had considerable potential for development. The roomy fuselage could easily accommodate a substantial bomb load, additional weapons and equipment. In August, the first order for 180 serial Wellingtons was issued. Production began in the spring of 1938 and lasted until 1945. Total production reached 11,464 machines. All of them were built by 3 plants of Vickers concern. Reginald Kershaw, Rex Pearson, February 9, 1891 to January 10, 1948, was an English aircraft designer and chief designer for Vickers Limited, later Vickers Armstrongs Aircraft Limited. He was responsible for the Vickers Vimy, a heavy bomber designed during World War I and the first aircraft to cross the Atlantic non-stop. Sir Barnes Neville Wallace, September 26, 1887 to October 30, 1979, was an English scientist, engineer, and inventor. He is best known for inventing the bouncing bomb used by the Royal Air Force in Operation Punishment, the Levee Breakers Raid, to attack dams in the Ruhr Valley during World War II. He was originally trained as a naval engineer and in 1922 earned an engineering degree from the University of London's externship program. In 1913 he had the opportunity to become an aircraft designer, first working on airships and then airplanes. He joined Vickers, later incorporated into Vickers Armstrongs and then the British Aircraft Corporation, and worked for them until his retirement in 1971. Flight specifications of Wellington Mk. IC aircraft. Engines. Bristol, Pegasus, 18. Power. 1,065 horsepower. Wingspan. 22.26 meters. The length of the plane, 19.69 meters. The height of the plane, 6.76 meters. Wing area, 69.96 square meters. Weight, kilogram. Empty aircraft, 8,530. Maximum takeoff weight, 13,610. Maximal speed, 380 km per hour. Rate of climb, 3.4 meters per second. Practical ceiling, 5,490 meters. Flying range, 4,105 kilometers. Use of Vickers Wellington aircraft during World War II. Deliveries of Wellingtons to combat units began in October 1938, when the first planes were received by No. 99 Squadron. By the time World War II broke out, Bomber Command had 6 combat-ready squadrons in Group 3, 2 more were in reserve and 2, in Group 6, performed training duties. The Wellingtons were slightly outnumbered by the Handley Page Hamptons and Armstrong Whitworth Whitley, but later Vickers aircraft supplanted both of these types to become the Royal Air Force's main medium bomber. In particular, in November 1941, Bomber Command had 250 Wellingtons, 150 Hamptons and 62 Whitley. The Wellingtons made their combat debut on September 4, 1939, when 14 aircraft of the 9th and 149th Squadrons bombed German ships at Brunsbüttel. The 2 Wellingtons shot down in that raid were the first Allied air losses in the West. A series of raids on enemy ships in Helgoland and Wilhelmshaven led to significant losses among the Wellington's squadrons, and later these bombers were switched to night operations. Bombing raids on German territory were initially limited. The British leadership feared retaliatory Luftwaffe raids. But after the beginning of the German Blitzkrieg in the West, these restrictions were lifted. The first large-scale raid took place on the night of May 15, 1940 on the facilities of the Ruhr. 39 Wellingtons participated in it, along with other types of aircraft. And on the night of June 16, 8 planes of this type bombed Italy for the first time, striking Genoa, using a hopping airfield near Toulon. In the months that followed, the role of the Wellingtons in bomber command operations increased. On August 25, 1940, they participated in the first raid on Berlin. On the night of December 16–17, the Mannheim raid was the first time the tactic of bombing with the help of targeting planes was tested, which significantly increased the accuracy. By the end of 1941, the Bomber Command had 23 Wellington squadrons, including 4 Polish, 2 Canadian, 2 Australian, 1 New Zealander and 1 Czechoslovak. They operated mostly Mkic and Mk3 aircraft, but 2 squadrons flew Mk2s, and the Polish squadrons were the only ones fighting Mk4s. Wellingtons were at the tip of the lance of the war campaign launched by Bomber Command against Germany's industrial centers in March 1942. The first 1000 bomber raid on Cologne on the night of May 31, 1942, involved 599 aircraft of this type, out of a total of 1,043. Deliveries of Wellingtons continued, and in early 1943 they were almost completely rearmed by the 6th Canadian Group. But gradually the new 4-engine bombers came to play a leading role in the air offensive against Germany. Wellingtons were quite widely used in the Mediterranean theater of operations. Egypt's squadron Mkic-70 was the first to get them, and in September 1940 it began to fly combat missions against targets in Libya. In late 1940 the 37th Squadron arrived in Egypt and in the spring of 1941 supported operations in Greece and then took part in the suppression of the insurgency in Iraq. From the end of 1941 2 squadrons were based in Malta. By the end of 1942, the 142nd and 150th Squadrons were redeployed from metropolitan France to Algeria, and in the second half of 1943 3 Canadian squadrons operated from Tunisia. The Wellington's last combat flight in the Mediterranean was on the 13th of March 1944. In the post-war period, the Wellingtons were used by the Royal Air Force only for auxiliary purposes. 8 of the planes were handed over to Greece in April 1946 and 39 machines were delivered to French naval aviation the same year.